I always thought my life would shatter with a bang. Instead, it crumbled with the gentle tap of a champagne glass and my husband's practiced smile. My name is Stephanie, and I was watching my husband of 7 years destroy our marriage in front of 200 guests at his parents' 40th anniversary celebration. The crystal chandeliers of the country club ballroom sparkled overhead as Bryce, handsome in his tailored suit, took the microphone from the master of ceremonies. "First, I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate my amazing parents," he began, flashing that $1 million realtor smile. "Mum, Dad, you've shown me what true love looks like. You've taught me that sometimes. Sometimes you have to be brave enough to follow your heart, even when it leads you down unexpected paths." I felt it then, that slight shift in the air. The way his parents' proud smiles began to waver. The subtle change in Bryce's voice that I'd learned to recognise over years of watching him close deals. "Which is why," he continued, his eyes deliberately avoiding mine, "I need to make an announcement. Stephanie and I will be selling our house and going our separate ways, because I've found true love, the kind Mum and Dad have always had, with someone who makes me feel alive again." The champagne in my glass trembled, not from my hand shaking, I was perfectly still, but from the collective gasp that rippled through the room. "Mia," Bryce said, extending his hand toward my younger cousin, "would you join me up here?" Mia rose from her seat, resplendent in a tight red dress that probably cost 3 months of the rent she'd never paid while living in our guest room. As she walked to the front, her hand rested deliberately on her stomach. The whispers started immediately. "Mia and I are starting a new life together," Bryce announced, wrapping his arm around her waist. "We'll be using the proceeds from the house sale to build our future. Sometimes life surprises you with what you really need." I watched my mother-in-law Prudence press a hand to her mouth. Walter, my father-in-law, stood frozen, his anniversary toast forgotten in his hand. The room erupted in murmurs and shocked expressions, phones already lighting up as people rushed to document the drama. "Stephanie," Bryce finally looked at me, his voice dripping with rehearsed compassion, "I hope you can understand. These things just happen sometimes. These things just happen. Like taking in your younger cousin when she was broke and desperate. Like watching her curl up on your couch, crying about how hard life had been. Like noticing your husband working late more often, but trusting him because that's what partners do." I could have screamed, could have thrown my champagne in his face, or called out Mia's crocodile tears. Instead, I slowly set down my glass and stood up. The room fell silent, waiting for the inevitable explosion. "Congratulations," I said softly, my voice carrying in the quiet. "You're right, Bryce. These things do happen." I walked toward the exit, my heels clicking against the marble floor. Behind me, I heard Mia's theatrical sniffle, probably practiced in front of a mirror, just like her pregnancy test announcement. "Stephanie, wait," Walter called out, but I kept walking. Just before I reached the door, I turned back. Bryce was already sitting down, looking relieved that I'd taken it so well. Mia was accepting hugs from shocked relatives, her hand still positioned perfectly over her supposedly pregnant belly. I smiled. Not the broken smile of a betrayed wife, but the smile of someone who knows something nobody else does. The smile of someone who remembers exactly whose name is on the deed to that house they're so eagerly planning to sell. "Happy anniversary!" I called out to Walter and Prudence. "I'm sorry your son chose today to show everyone exactly who he is." As I walked out into the cool evening air, I pulled out my phone and typed a quick message to my best friend Genesis. "Remember that conversation we had about karma? It's time." The valet brought my car around. As I slid behind the wheel, my phone buzzed with Genesis's response. "On my way. Bring wine. The expensive stuff, you can afford it." I laughed for the first time that evening. Oh, they had no idea just how much I could afford. But they were about to find out. Genesis was already waiting on my front porch when I pulled into the driveway of the house Bryce thought he owned. The same house my grandmother's trust had paid for in full 5 years ago. The house whose deed bore only my name. "I brought the good stuff," I said, holding up a bottle of Cabernet as I climbed the steps. "You brought the paperwork too?" Genesis asked, her legal briefcase propped against her hip. "Everything's in my home office." We walked through the front door, and I flicked on the lights illuminating the space Bryce and Mia had probably already mentally redecorated. The thought made me pause at the family photo wall. "Don't," Genesis warned, catching my expression. Don't waste energy on memories right now. We need to focus. I led her to my office, pulling out the deed, trust documents and bank statements I'd gathered earlier that morning. Genesis spread them across my desk, her attorney's eyes scanning each page. Remember when Mia showed up? I asked, pouring us each a generous glass. Crying about how her roommate kicked her out, how she couldn't afford a place in the city. I remember telling you not to take her in, Genesis replied, not looking up from the papers. She was family. She'd just lost her job, said she needed 3 months tops to get back on her feet. I took a long sip. That was 14 months ago. Genesis finally looked up. When did you first suspect? Little things. Bryce suddenly caring about his appearance more, coming home late smelling like new cologne. But the biggest tell? I pulled out my phone, opening my banking app. Mia started buying expensive things 2 months ago. Designer bags, spa days. Funny how someone who couldn't afford rent suddenly had shopping money. Your money, Genesis said flatly. Through Bryce. Through Bryce, I confirmed. Who thought this house was half his to spend from? A knock at the front door made us both freeze. Through the security camera feed on my phone, I saw Bryce standing there, still in his suit from the party. Time to start the show? Genesis asked, gathering the papers into neat piles. I nodded, straightening my spine. Stay here. Let me handle this first round. Opening the door, I found Bryce swaying slightly. He clearly had more champagne after I left. Baby, we need to talk, he slurred, trying to step inside. I blocked the doorway. About what? The house you're planning to sell or the cousin you're planning to marry? Don't be like that. These things, they're complicated. Mia and I, we didn't mean for this to happen. Really? I leaned against the doorframe. So you accidentally slept with her while she was living under our roof? Accidentally gave her access to our accounts. His face hardened. Look, I know you're upset, but this is happening. We'll list the house next week. Split everything 50-50. Keep it clean. Clean? I laughed. Like sneaking around with my cousin was clean? Like the joint LLC you opened with her last month was clean? That sobered him up. How did you... Public records, honey. I know about everything. The business account, the rental properties you were planning to flip with my house money. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Our house money, he corrected, voice rising. I've paid into this place for years. Genesis, I called over my shoulder. Want to explain to my husband what rent is? Genesis appeared beside me, manila folder in hand. Gladly. See, Bryce, when you make payments on a property you don't own, that's called rent. And since your name isn't on the deed, what are you talking about? He grabbed for the folder, but Genesis pulled it back. The house is in my name, I said quietly. Only my name. Always has been. Grandmother's trust paid for it outright. You never owned a thing. The colour drained from his face. You're lying. The deed, bank records, and trust documents say otherwise. I smiled. But hey, these things just happen sometimes, right? You can't do this to me, he stammered. To us? Mia's pregnant. Is she? I raised an eyebrow. Maybe we should call her brother Rory and ask about that. He had some interesting things to say about Mia's history with fake pregnancies. Bryce stumbled backward, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. You have 30 days to find a new place, I said. I'll have the official notice delivered tomorrow. Oh, and Bryce, the next time you try to sell something, make sure you own it first. I closed the door on his shocked face, turning back to Genesis. Round one, she said, raising her wine glass. Oh, honey, I replied, clinking my glass against hers. We're just getting started. The bank manager's expression shifted from professional courtesy to concern as she reviewed the documents on her computer screen. Mrs. Newman, there appears to be a problem. What kind of problem, Angela? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. She turned her monitor so I could see it. Your husband attempted to take out a substantial loan last week, using your property as collateral. He claimed to be a co-owner. Genesis, sitting beside me, leaned forward. And? The application was flagged due to the deed verification process. He submitted falsified documents. Angela clasped her hands together. We're required to report this. Of course, I nodded. We'd like copies of everything, please. While Angela printed the documents, my phone buzzed with a text from Mia. Can we talk? Just us girls? Look at this. I showed Genesis the message. Want to bet she's having second thoughts now that she knows there's no house money coming? Don't respond, Genesis advised. Let her sweat. Angela returned with a thick folder. There's something else you should know. The LLC they formed. They've already collected deposits from potential investors for property flips, using your address as collateral. Genesis's eyes lit up. Securities fraud. Now we're talking. She pulled out her phone and started typing notes. Thank you, Angela. I stood up, taking the folder. You've been incredibly helpful. Outside the bank, Genesis grabbed my arm. We need to move faster than planned. If they're taking investor money based on fraudulent claims, they could be in real legal trouble, I finished. And pray good, Stephanie. Genesis's tone made me look at her. This isn't just about revenge anymore. This is about protecting yourself. If any of those investors come after assets... My phone buzzed again. This time it was Walter, my father-in-law. Please call me. We need to discuss this situation. Your in-laws? Genesis asked. I nodded. Want to come watch me destroy their perfect image of their son? 20 minutes later, we sat in Walter and Prudence's immaculate living room. Prudence's hands shook as she set down a tea tray. Stephanie, Walter began. We're devastated by Bryce's behaviour, but surely we can handle this privately as a family. Like how Bryce handled announcing his affair at your anniversary party. I took a sip of tea. Or how he handled forging documents to try to steal my house, Prudence gasped. What? I slid the bank documents across the coffee table. Your son committed fraud, Walter. He and Mia have been collecting investment money based on property they don't own. Walter's face reddened as he read. There must be some mistake. The only mistake, Genesis interjected, was assuming your son could take whatever he wanted without consequences. We'll pay you, Prudence blurted out, whatever the house is worth, to keep this quiet. I set down my teacup with a sharp clink. This isn't about money. This is about your son and my cousin thinking they could humiliate me and profit from it. They chose to make it public. Now they get to be publicly accountable. But his career, Walter started. Should have been something he thought about before committing fraud, Genesis finished. The investors he scammed, they're not going to care about his career either. My phone buzzed yet again, a text from an unknown number. This is Rory, Mia's brother. Got your message. There's more you need to know about what they were planning. Excuse me, I stood up. I have another meeting, but don't worry. I'm sure Bryce will land on his feet. He's always been good at falling up, hasn't he? Prudence was crying now. Please, Stephanie, we're family. Family? I paused at the door. Family doesn't steal from family. Family doesn't betray trust for profit. And family certainly doesn't announce affairs at anniversary parties. Outside, Genesis checked her watch. Ready to meet Rory? I looked at the text again, a small smile forming. You know what they say about karma. What's that? Sometimes she needs a little help with her timing. I started the car. Let's go see what else my dear cousin and soon-to-be ex have been up to. As we pulled away, I caught a glimpse of Walter and Prudence through their window, heads bent together over the documents I'd left. Their perfect family portrait was cracking, and I was just getting started with the hammer. Rory looked nothing like his sister Mia. Where she was polished and practiced, he was raw and real, with tattoo-covered arms and clear eyes that spoke of hard-won sobriety. We met at a quiet coffee shop downtown, away from prying eyes. 8 months clean, he said, noticing my glance at his recovery program chip. Which is why I can't keep quiet about this anymore, doing the right thing and all that. What do you know, Rory? I asked. Genesis sitting silently beside me, recording everything. He pulled out his phone. First, that pregnancy. It's fake. Mia's pulled this before with her last boyfriend's family. She even bought fake ultrasound photos online. Show me, Genesis said, sliding a legal pad across the table. Rory typed in his phone password and pulled up a series of texts between him and Mia from 3 weeks ago. She was bragging about it, how she'd finally landed a rich one. No offence, he added quickly. None taken, I replied. Continue. But here's the bigger thing. You know that business they started? The real estate thing? He scrolled further. Mia's been working with this woman named Yvette Hart. They've done this before in other cities. Find wealthy couples, break them up, take the assets. Genesis's pen stopped moving. Hart, you said? Yeah, why? Because... Genesis pulled out her own phone. I just got a hit on that name in 3 different fraud investigations. Real estate scams, all of them. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister Meredith, who I hadn't spoken to in years. Saw the news about Bryce. We need to talk. Now. I have to take this, I said, stepping outside. With shaking fingers, I called the number I'd tried so hard to forget. About time, Meredith answered on the first ring. I'm at that cafe on 5th Street, the one with the blue awning. Come alone. 20 minutes later, I walked into the cafe, spotting Meredith immediately. 5 years hadn't changed her much. Same sharp features, same knowing smile. Little sister, she said, standing to hug me. Sit. You're going to want to hear this. How did you know about Mia? She laughed. Because she tried the same thing with my Robert 3 years ago. The pregnancy, the business opportunity, all of it. Only difference is I caught them before they got anywhere. My coffee cup clattered against its saucer. Why didn't you warn me? Would you have believed me? Meredith raised an eyebrow. After everything with grandmother's estate. Besides, Mia swore she'd changed. Said you were helping her turn her life around. Well, she certainly turned something around, I muttered. Here's what you don't know. Meredith leaned forward. That woman they're working with, Yvette. She's got warrants in 3 states. And Mia, she's not just after your house money. She's after your entire trust fund. My phone buzzed again. Genesis sending me photos of documents Rory had provided. Bank statements, text messages, a whole trail of breadcrumbs leading to an elaborate con. How do you know all this? I asked Meredith. Because after what happened with Robert, I hired a private investigator. Been keeping tabs on our dear cousin ever since. She pulled out a USB drive. Everything's here. Consider it my peace offering for everything that happened before. I stared at the drive. Why help me now? Because you're my sister. And because some people need to learn they can't keep playing these games without consequences. She stood up. Call me when you're ready to really take them down. I've got some ideas. Back at the coffee shop, Genesis and Rory were deep in conversation about bank transfers and shell companies. Got something better, I announced, holding up the USB drive. We need to go through this now. What is it? Genesis asked. Everything we need, I smiled. And I think it's time we threw a party of our own. Something intimate, family only. What kind of party? Rory asked. The kind where everyone gets exactly what they deserve. I pulled out my phone and started composing a message. Tell me, how do you feel about being our guest of honour? Rory's face broke into a slow grin. If it means watching my sister finally face consequences, count me in. Perfect, I said, hitting send on the invitation. Because this is going to be a night they'll never forget. My phone lit up immediately with Mia's response. Of course we'll come. So glad you're being mature about everything. Oh, honey, you have no idea just how mature I can be. Everything on this USB is gold, Genesis announced, spreading printouts across my dining room table. Bank transfers, fake business registrations, even emails between Mia and Yvette planning the whole thing. Look at this one. Meredith pointed to a particular email. Target secured. Husband taking the bait. Once we get the house money, we can move on to the trust fund. They were planning this for months. I picked up my phone and dialed Dale Mason, the realtor I'd worked with years ago when I first bought the house. Dale? How'd you like to help me put on a show? An hour later, Dale sat in my living room, reviewing the plan. So you want me to pretend I'm listing the house? Play along with their game? Exactly, I confirmed. They think I'm surrendering, having a farewell party to say goodbye to the house. I need you to be here as the realtor, make it look official. And then? Dale asked, a slight smile playing at his lips. And then you help me deliver the surprise of their lives. I handed him a folder. These are the actual property documents. When the time comes, you'll know exactly what to do. My phone buzzed. Bryce calling again. I let it go to voicemail. He's been trying to reach me all day, I told Genesis. Probably realised his loan application got flagged. Speaking of flags, Genesis pulled up something on her laptop. Look what I found about Yvette Hart. She's been indicted in Florida for running almost identical scams. She finds vulnerable, wealthy families, plants someone inside, and systematically drains their accounts. And Mia's her latest protégé, Meredith added. Was her latest protégé, I corrected. Because this ends now. The doorbell rang. Through the security camera, I saw Bryce and Mia standing there, looking uncomfortable but determined. Showtime, I whispered, opening the door. Well, if it isn't the happy couple. Stephanie, Mia stepped forward, all wide eyes and practiced concern. We wanted to talk about the party. Make sure you're really okay with everything. Why wouldn't I be? I gestured them inside. Dale's here to discuss listing the house. Come join us. They followed me to the living room, where Dale sat with his briefcase. Genesis and Meredith had slipped upstairs, out of sight but recording everything. Now. I sat down, crossing my legs. You wanted to discuss selling my house? Our house, Bryce corrected automatically. I've put money into this place for years. Interesting perspective. Dale opened his briefcase. Because according to these records, you've never had any ownership stake in the property. That's impossible, Mia interjected. Bryce said a lot of things, I cut in, like how he could use this house as collateral for loans, or how he could sell it and split the proceeds with his mistress. We're in love, Mia protested. And this baby is as fake as your designer bags, I finished. Rory told me everything, Mia. About Florida, about Yvette Hart, about all of it. The colour drained from her face. You talked to Rory? I did. He's quite chatty now that he's sober, especially about your history of pregnancy scams. Bryce turned to Mia. What is she talking about? She's lying, Mia grabbed his arm. Baby, she's just jealous. We can still sell the house, start fresh. Actually, Dale interrupted, you can't, because tomorrow these documents will be filed with the county recorder's office. Fraud charges, false loan applications, evidence of your little investment scheme. You wouldn't, Bryce stammered. I stood up, walking to the front door and opening it. I already have. Now get out of my house. But don't worry, you'll both be invited to the party. I'm thinking Friday night, give everyone time to clear their schedules. You're making a mistake, Mia hissed as Bryce dragged her toward the door. No, cousin, I smiled. The mistake was thinking you could take what's mine. Friday night, 7 o'clock. Don't be late. You won't want to miss the main event. After they left, Genesis and Meredith came downstairs. Got it all on video, Genesis confirmed. Perfect. I picked up my phone. Time to send out the rest of the invitations. This is going to be a party no one will ever forget. Especially not them, Meredith added with a satisfied smile. The house looked perfect. I'd hired caterers, arranged flowers, and even put out professional for sale signs in the yard. Everything had to look legitimate for what was about to unfold. The investors are here, Genesis whispered, peeking through the curtains. 3 couples who gave Bryce and Mia deposits for their fake property flips. And there's Rory, Meredith added, watching him park his motorcycle, looking surprisingly cleaned up. I smoothed my black cocktail dress and checked my lipstick one final time. Places everyone. The show's about to begin. The doorbell chimed. Walter and Prudence arrived first, looking uncomfortable but determined to maintain appearances. Then came the investors, followed by various family members and friends who'd witnessed Bryce's announcement at the anniversary party. Such a brave face you're putting on, my Aunt Julia whispered, hugging me, letting them come here after what they did. Oh, I believe in closure, I replied, catching Meredith's eye across the room. At exactly 7, Bryce and Mia made their entrance. She wore white, of course she did, with her hand still strategically placed over her non-existent bump. Bryce looked nervous, but tried to hide it behind his Realtor smile. Welcome, everyone, I called out, tapping my glass. I'm so glad you could all be here tonight. As you know, changes are coming, and I wanted to gather everyone together one last time in this house. Mia smirked, whispering something to Bryce. I continued. Dale Mason, our realtor, has some information to share about the property listing. Dale stepped forward, briefcase in hand. Yes, I've reviewed all the documentation and... Actually, Bryce interrupted. Before we get to that, Mia and I have an announcement. Perfect. Right, on cue. We're not just expecting a baby, he continued, pulling out an envelope. We've already secured buyers for the house. In fact, some of them are here tonight. The investors shifted uncomfortably as Bryce gestured to them. We're starting a luxury property development company, Mia added, beaming, using the proceeds from this house as seed money. Interesting, I said, nodding to Genesis. She pressed play on her laptop, connected to the living room TV. Suddenly, Mia's voice filled the room. Once we get the house money, we move on to the trust fund. Same plan as Florida, but bigger. The The colour drained from Mia's face as the recording continued, revealing every detail of her scheme with Yvette Hart. "Turn that off!" she shrieked. But Rory stepped forward. "Why? Scared of people hearing the truth, sis? About the fake pregnancy? The investment scams?" "Is this true?" one of the investors demanded, standing up. "We gave you $50,000. "Dale," I called out calmly, "please share the property records now." Dale opened his briefcase, pulling out the documents. "This house has only one owner, Stephanie. It was purchased outright through her grandmother's trust. Bryce has never had any legal claim to the property." The room erupted. The investors started shouting about fraud. Walter slumped in his chair while Prudence began to cry. "That's not possible," Bryce stammered. "I have paperwork." "Forged paperwork," Genesis stepped forward, badge in hand, "which the Banking Commission is very interested in discussing with you." "You set us up," Mia snarled, turning to me. "This whole party was a trap." "No, Mia," I replied softly. "You set yourself up. I just made sure everyone could watch." "Mum? Dad?" Bryce turned to his parents desperately. "You have to help us." "Help you?" Walter stood up, shaking. "You committed fraud. You tried to steal your wife's house. You announced your affair at our anniversary party. You're on your own." "Everyone," I called out over the chaos. "There's wine in the kitchen, and the caterers will be serving dinner shortly. Please, stay and enjoy the evening. Bryce, Mia, I believe those gentlemen from the fraud division would like a word with you outside." As they were led out, Mia turned back one last time. "You'll regret this." "No," I smiled, touching the necklace my grandmother had left me. "I don't think I will." The party continued into the night, but it wasn't a farewell to my house anymore. It was a farewell to lies, to betrayal, and to people who thought they could take what wasn't theirs. And somewhere, I like to think, my grandmother was smiling. The morning after the party, I sat in my kitchen watching the local news coverage. "Local realtor and associate arrested for real estate fraud," the headline scrolled across the screen. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since dawn. "Turn to Channel 7, Genesis said, walking in with coffee. "They're interviewing the investors." On screen, one of the couples from last night described how they had lost their retirement savings to Bryce and Mia's scheme. The reporter mentioned multiple victims across 3 states. "Did you see Mia's booking photo?" Meredith asked, sliding her phone across the table. "Amazing what the right lighting can do to designer makeup." A sharp knock at the door interrupted us. Walter and Prudence stood there looking like they'd aged a decade overnight. "May we come in?" Walter asked quietly. I led them to the living room, where evidence of last night's revelations still lingered. Empty wine glasses, scattered documents, and a forgotten white purse Mia had dropped in her rush to leave. "We've spoken to our lawyer," Prudence began, hands trembling in her lap. "We'll cover the investors' losses, all of them." "That's not necessary," I started. But Walter held up his hand. "Yes, it is. Our son did this. We enabled this." He pulled out a checkbook. "We should have seen who he really was long ago." "The money isn't the point," I said. "It was never about the money." "We know," Prudence whispered. "It was about trust, family, everything we taught him to value, and he just..." She broke down crying. My phone buzzed again, a text from Rory. "Mia's asking for bail money. Told her to try selling some of those fake designer bags." "Have you heard from him?" Walter asked, noticing my small smile. "No, and I won't. The fraud division has enough evidence to keep them both busy for quite a while." I stood up, walking to the family photo wall. "I'll be taking these down soon." "Of course." Prudence nodded. "We understand if you want to cut all ties." "Actually," I turned back to them, "I was thinking of replacing them with new ones. Family photos don't always have to include blood or marriage. Sometimes family is who stands by you when everything falls apart." Genesis cleared her throat from the doorway. "Speaking of falling apart, you might want to see this." She held up her tablet, showing Mia's social media post from jail. "The truth will come out. Stephanie orchestrated everything. She trapped us. She's the real criminal." "Well," Meredith said, "someone clearly doesn't understand how evidence works." "Let her rant," I shrugged. "The bank records, property documents, and investor testimonies tell the real story." Another knock. This time it was Dale with a thick folder. "Final paperwork from the fraud division. They want to know if you'll testify." "Of course I will." I took the folder. "They tried to steal more than just money. They tried to steal my dignity, my home, my trust in family. About that, Walter stood up, helping Prudence to her feet. We're moving to Florida. After everything, we need a fresh start. I understand. I hugged them both. Sometimes the healthiest thing we can do is walk away. After they left, Genesis Meredith and I sat in my kitchen, in my house, that no one could ever take from me. You know what's funny? Meredith mused. They thought they were so clever, but they never once questioned why you stayed so calm at that anniversary party. Because they underestimated me, I replied. Just like they underestimated this house's security cameras, which caught every meeting they had here while I was at work, Genesis laughed. And the fake pregnancy tests Mia left in the bathroom trash, all documented and photographed, I confirmed. Along with the receipts she forgot to delete from my Amazon account when she ordered them. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from Bryce's lawyer requesting a meeting. Want me to handle that? Genesis offered. No, I smiled, picking up my grandmother's photo from the counter. I think it's time I handle things myself. After all, isn't that what they wanted? For me to stand on my own? Careful what you wish for, Meredith sang. Indeed, I replied, typing a response to the lawyer. They wanted me to stand on my own. They just didn't expect me to stand quite so tall. The last box of Bryce's belongings sat by the curb as Genesis pulled into my driveway. She carried 2 cups of coffee and the morning paper. Made the front page, she announced, spreading the newspaper on my kitchen counter. Local real estate scam leads to multiple indictments. Any mention of the fake pregnancy? I asked, sipping my coffee. Page 3. Apparently, Mia's pulled this stunt in 2 other states. The prosecutors are having a field day. My phone lit up with a text from Rory. Mia's lawyer quit. Says she's impossible to defend. Karma's not just a bitch. She's your best friend. The doorbell rang. Dale stood there with a stack of documents. Final paperwork from the fraud division. They've frozen all the accounts Bryce and Mia set up. The investors should get most of their money back. Good, I signed where he indicated. No one else gets hurt by their games. Except them, Genesis added with satisfaction. 10 years is a long time to think about your choices. I walked Dale out, pausing to look at my house, really look at it. The morning sun caught the windows just right, making them sparkle. This was more than just a building. It was my grandmother's legacy, my sanctuary, my strength. Still writing that letter? Genesis nodded toward the unfinished note on my desk. To my grandmother, I confirmed, telling her how her trust fund did more than just buy a house. It taught me to trust myself. Speaking of trust, Genesis pulled out her phone. Meredith sent this. Bryce is trying to play victim on social media. Posted some sob story about being manipulated by 2 women. I laughed. Let him. The evidence speaks louder than his posts. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Walter and Prudence stopping by before their move to Florida. We sold our house, Prudence said quietly, and we've written Bryce out of our will. The money will go to the fraud victims restitution fund instead. You didn't have to do that, I started. But Walter shook his head. Yes, we did. Actions have consequences. It's time everyone learned that. After they left, I returned to my grandmother's letter. Dear Grandma, you always said money doesn't buy happiness, but wisdom knows how to protect it. When you left me the trust fund, I thought you were teaching me about financial security. Now I know you were teaching me something far more valuable, how to stand firm when the world tries to shake you. Bryce and Mia thought they were clever, playing their long game. They never realised they were playing checkers while you taught me chess. Every move they made, every lie they told, only proved why you put the house in my name alone. The trust fund wasn't just money, it was trust in myself. Trust that I'd know what to do when betrayal wore a familiar face. Trust that I'd remember your words. Sometimes the biggest gift you can give yourself is the power to walk away with your head held high. They say revenge doesn't change anything. But this wasn't about revenge. It was about justice, truth, and showing others that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should watch most carefully. Thank you for teaching me that strength doesn't need to shout, that dignity doesn't need to defend itself, that sometimes the best response to betrayal is to simply step aside and let karma do her work. The house stands stronger now, just like me. Every morning when I wake up here, I think of you and smile, because you didn't just leave me a house. You left me the wisdom to keep it and the strength to make it a home again. Love always, Stephanie. Perfect, Genesis said, reading over my shoulder. Now what? I sealed the letter and placed it in my grandmother's old jewellery box. Now we live. We thrive. We remember that the best revenge isn't just living well, it's living truthfully. My phone buzzed with another notification. Mia and Bryce's business page had been permanently suspended for fraud. They say karma takes her time, Genesis mused. Maybe, I smiled, closing my grandmother's jewellery box. Or maybe she just waits for the right moment to teach her lessons. Outside, the for sale signs had been replaced with a single small plaque by the door. Newman House, Eastern 2018. My house, my name, my truth. And that was worth more than any revenge.